Hey guys, how are you? Thanks for coming out in the midst of midterms and everything else that's going on right now. My name's Allison. I've been at the Career Education Center now for, will be 6 years in January. And so in my one-on-one work with students, if someone either online or at the front desk were to say something like, I'm looking to meet with someone because I'm exploring or transitioning or thought that I was going to like what I tried, ended up not liking it, and now what do I do with that information, things like that. They'll usually end up meeting one-on-one with me or another member of my team. And just know that we also have industry-specific people, and so if someone walked in our door and said, hey, I want to try working at NPR over the summer, I'd be like, we should talk to Jackie about that. And if you said, I want to work for the Department of Energy, that would be Beth. And so just know we all work together in collaborative ways, and one of the things that I have kind of presented on over the past couple of semesters is just funding unpaid internships. And so just to kind of give you a feel for what we're going to talk about, we'll walk through just some general considerations and things to be thinking about before you start applying to anything, whether it's paid or unpaid. We're going to debunk a few myths about some specific industries and show you some places to look for maybe things that are viewed as, they tend to be unpaid, but there are sometimes hidden gems in those types of industries, and then opportunities connected to Georgetown's campus and outside of it just to get funding or support with housing, knowing that everybody's needs are different. And so one of the things that I want you to think about is, if I'm going to take on an unpaid opportunity, what is my bottom line, right? What do I need and for how long do I need it for? Are you someone who, if I am unpaid but I have housing included, that's something that works well for me? I need a certain amount of money per hour over a certain amount of hours per week in order to, frankly, be financially stable. I don't think we do a great job on campus, common sense I think is the exception to that, of talking about socioeconomic status and how that impacts choices, whether that's related to student groups or careers or lots of other things. And so just want to encourage you all, as individual questions come up, please ask, because I know everybody's circumstances look a little bit different. And so one of the things that I would say, whether you're applying for a job or an internship, is you have to know what your must-haves are way before you apply to anything, right? Geographically, what are my preferences? What's the cost of living in those areas? Am I planning on living with friends, family, home? Am I planning on having to rent, and what does that rental market look like, right? Thinking about how many hours a week can I commit to an unpaid versus a paid opportunity. Everything's negotiable. And so if someone says they're looking for 30 hours a week, but you can do 25, and the rest of the time can be dedicated to a paid opportunity of some kind, awesome. Let's ask for what we need as a part of the employment process. And so one of the common myths, what would you say are some of the industries or job titles that are known as unpaid? Capitol Hill. What else?
UN.
UN, yes.
World Bank.
World Bank. Of course, the big guys. What else?
Yeah, just nonprofits in general.
Nonprofits in general.
Startups.
Startups, yes. They want to work you very hard for not very much sometimes. As they're trying to make money to pay themselves sometimes. Any other industries that come to mind when you think like, oh, that's probably going to be unpaid? For me, the entertainment world, kind of your PR communication space, can sometimes fall into that category. Sports can sometimes fall into that category in terms of, and the way that it's sometimes phrased, which is probably my least favorite way, is paying your dues. What on earth does that even mean? I'm working here, I should probably get paid. That is a story for another day. And so one of the things that I want to walk you through are a few resources connected to some of those industries where we can find paid opportunities within those spaces. Capitol Hill, tough sell in terms of finding paid opportunities. So I don't want to be the Mary Sunshine of unreasonability in this moment. But one of the ways that can sometimes be a workaround for that is, so let's take, so Handshake is our jobs and internship database. It's different if you are an upperclassman than what we've had in the past. And so if you're using something that doesn't look like this, stop right now, go to our homepage and make this account. Because we're not updating that old system anymore. And so, to me, I think politics, right, is something that tends to be unpaid, and then probably at the internship level, but just to check it out. All right, so I have for paid opportunities that connect to the world of politics, right? And so sometimes that can come in the form of think tanks, sometimes committees and groups that are on the Hill but aren't Senator so-and-so's office are paid opportunities. And so it's good to keep on the lookout for those types of things because you'll be doing similar work connecting with that community and you're able to get paid to do it. And so that's one piece. Nonprofits do get a bad reputation for traditionally being the unpaid internship space. One of the things that I wanted to check before you all got here was, so for us, how do I find paid opportunities in this space? So I have to clear all this fun stuff out. And so one of the things to take a look at is if we look at nonprofits and we look at paid versus unpaid opportunities, about 160 are paid, about 115 are unpaid. We're actually starting to see a little bit of a shift in the nonprofit space around paid versus unpaid internships, which I think is awesome. And so one of the things that I don't want you to do is just believe that that is a closed door. Are there unpaid opportunities? Absolutely. We're going to talk about ways to fund those, I promise. But I at least want to show you some kind of behind the scenes way to maybe find things so that might be not even be something you have to worry about. How many of you are familiar with something called Idealist? Does that ring a bell? Yeah? What have you used Idealist for?
Jobs.
Jobs, yes. And so Idealist is kind of the NGO's Google for jobs and internships. And so it's a great resource to kind of track some things down in general. They are also one of the nonprofit resources that actually allows you to take a closer look at paid versus unpaid opportunities, and also areas of interest for you. And so just one of those things that I want to draw your attention to is you're looking for things outside of what's normally there. Does that make sense? So Idealist, Handshake, nonprofit, yeah, the Hill, totally paying. I think they should pay everybody, but they haven't let me convince them of that yet. And so there's that aspect of it as well. One of the other industries that is sometimes known as the unpaid are the creative fields. Your marketing, your communications, sports, entertainment. Again, that paying your dues component. And so journalism also tends to fall under that space. Is anyone interested in that field? No. It's such a good example for that. And so what I will do instead, well, let me ask you this. What are some of the industries that you're most interested in hearing about? Can you all give me some examples? I'd rather make it more specific for you than kind of just the broad pieces. Yeah?
Politics and public policy.
Public policy?
Think tanks.
Think tanks?
Pre-law opportunities.
Yes. Pre-law? Pre-law? Anybody else that's outside of those areas? Yeah.
Pre-med opportunities.
Pre-med, okay. Well, let's take a look at two of those then. And so for my science contingent, one of the places that I really like to look for paid opportunities is through ORISE. And so they offer internships, fellowships, and research opportunities, specifically at the undergraduate and graduate level, the vast majority of which are paid, which can be a little bit harder to track down. And they are also all over the place. And so you are not necessarily locked into a DC experience. I know a lot of people want to find opportunities closer to home or visiting with friends or family over summers, breaks, etc. And so finding these national resources can be a really good place to start. And so for my science contingent, ORISE, there are a few other things, but I can talk to you about that after too if this isn't necessarily up your alley. My think tank contingent, there are, I would say it's split pretty evenly in terms of think tanks that pay versus think tanks that don't. That does not, you know how think tanks are always listed as nonpartisan? You know how they always have a leaning? Okay. so that is not a reflection of their political views. I've found that either folks who might have more of a conservative ideology versus a progressive ideology, or even just these super strict, we don't believe in anything, we're just here to give you the facts, think tanks. I've seen a little bit of both in terms of those. But opportunities at, I think, American Progress and AEI, just to give examples on both sides of the political spectrum, are paid. And so we can track those down. I will also say for my policy nonprofit crew, you guys are a touch early to find opportunities for summer. And so if you've been hunting around and found yourself frustrated by why are only spring things up right now, know that you're not doing anything wrong. That's a reflection of the industry timelines. It's certainly not true for all programs. Some more formal things will be posted in the fall for summer, but just know that you're not behind. You haven't missed those types of opportunities. If you've been like, wow, why is there so much finance going on right now? It's their season. And so kind of like sports, their season will now go into more of an ongoing basis, but what we're about to see and why we have our government and nonprofit fair in February is because that crew is ready to launch your policy contingents, your think tanks and whatnot. They are like all about finding you guys and getting you ready for summer. And so just keep an eye out over the winter, and that's true for pre-law as well. You're going to see more pre-law undergraduate opportunities start to pop up starting end of November, December, January. And so for those types of things, it's more important to be consistent in your search than it is to be like November or bust. Like if I don't find something in November, then I'm in trouble. And so stay with it. Let us help and walk with you as you have more questions about your individual search. I'd say government jobs is another space that kind of gets a reputation for being unpaid. Again, I think there's a mix of that. And so also USA Jobs does not just have DC-based opportunities. That's something that I think I also hear a lot, like, well, if I want to work for the government, I have to stay here over the summer. That's not the case. A lot of these places will hire all over. But if I know I'm a student and I'm looking for an opportunity in the federal government, just as an example, and I take the salary from 0 to, I did this earlier, 10, which means that's the minimum, right, for whatever they are doing, then I've identified 102 internships in the federal government who I know right off the bat pay. And so that can be a starting point as well. Make sense? You guys still with me? Yeah, okay. And so there's that side of things as well. One of the misconceptions and myth I also want to make sure I address is having something paid look better than being unpaid? Do I have to list that on my resume? How do I speak about that to employers? The truth is, employers don't put a lot of stock in whether or not you were paid or unpaid. I think it's important to us whether or not we're paid or unpaid, but they don't put well, were you paid for this, and therefore is there added value? Whether it's a student group, a volunteer experience, something where you're doing research on campus, a student job here, they just want to know what you learned and why they should care, like why that's relevant to them. And so for the students who work here with us, I talk a lot with them about, you guys are the reason why everything's streamlined here. You are our triage group. You are the people who are using your strong communication skills to make referrals. You're problem solving. You're doing event management. Those are words that you're going to see in any internship description, right? Same thing if you're doing similar things for a student group, or you're working on research with a professor, or you're volunteering through CSJ. You know, we talk about and speak about all opportunities, whether they're paid or unpaid, the same. Because if I talk about it as less than, the employer is going to perceive it as less than, right? Oh, it's just a job on campus. Okay. Well, if the employer looks at you and says, how did having that job here make you a better candidate for this role? Make you a better analyst, make you a better policy person, right? You have to say one thing. Well, it really taught me how to do blank, which is why I think it would help me here, right? So everything we speak about in writing and verbally, we should treat the same. Make sense? So don't let paid be the thing you're seeking just for the sake of how it will be perceived. That's not how employers view it. Awesome. And so one of the things I wanted to show you, so we've kind of tried to track down some things hopefully that are interesting to you that are already paid. Sometimes that's just not in the cards, right? It's going to be unpaid and there's nothing that we can do to move forward. And so one of the things that I want to show you that's actually on our website, and I'm going to give you the handout to go, but just know, check back on the website because we update it, and so this is a snapshot in time and not everything that exists, is our unpaid internship resource page for FY18. And so what we've done is tried to, there is no holding place for all grants, scholarships, et cetera, that support internships. I wish there was. I think the partnership with GUSA and a few in the provost office and us that's kind of working on that right now to support unpaid internships. I think you're going to hear more about that. In the meantime, this is a great starting point. And so For undergraduates and graduate students, just know that this lists what the requirements are. If it's for undergraduates or graduates, it's right there already. How much or what it covers in terms of stipends and or housing or other pieces, what the description is, and the most updated information we have about application requirements and deadlines. Sometimes it'll say just spring, and then we'll check back in with them and realize it's up, and we'll update that deadline. And so just kind of keep an eye out for those changes. Question that I probably get a fair amount is related to housing, summer RA, residential living, through the School of Continuing Studies. There are a lot of different positions on campus where you can be paid while having your housing supported and taking a class even, or doing an internship. I don't think it just has to be for internships. But those deadlines will start to pop up in applications probably in the next few weeks, and will be due in the winter time, well before spring. And so you might not even have completed your internship search application stuff before you've had to do this. And so it's important to keep that in mind as you're searching for things. You might have to do this process first and then continue on an ongoing basis to search for opportunities. And so it talks about kind of summer fellowships, different scholarships through student groups, including GUSA, the Corps, Junior Women in Leadership. Those types of things aren't just for their members, and so you don't have to be directly affiliated to benefit from those types of opportunities. And again, this is why I started off with know what you need, right? Know in terms of either a dollar amount, how many hours a week you can commit to something unpaid, housing-wise. Your ability to articulate that is going to make you able to write a stronger application because you've done your homework, right? The reason why I'm applying for this grant is this connects to this opportunity, here's one thing I can do next, and this is exactly what I need. Especially if they say, ask for what you need up to X of dollar amount, the fact that you can show your math, so to speak, in terms of like you're not just asking for a random amount, but rather you've done the work on the back end to say, this is about what I would need, here's what it would allow me to do, here's the industry and why it's unpaid. That's just going to make you such a stronger applicant for these types of processes. So I know you hear contemplation and action and cura personalis a fair amount on this campus, so I won't put you through that, but the reflection side of things will help you with this, even if it's just a few minutes talking it over with an advisor, with one of us, with a peer that's trusted, a mentor. These are good conversations to be having. And so I want to make sure, because I have done this before, where I've talked about this and not handed it out, so let's not do that again. So will you all be my supporting cast here? Thank you. And so part of some of these are Georgetown specific. That's what the first tab is. And then when you, well, for whatever reason my computer is not cooperating, but there's also a tab on here for external resources. So sometimes Georgetown just doesn't have something that aligns with what we're looking for. And so there's an external research page for grants and opportunities. Pro tip, if you are looking for internship funding outside of the university setting, you can use the word scholarship. I would actually recommend you use the word grant when you're searching, like internship grants rather than scholarships. What I've run into is when I use the word scholarship, there's usually a requirement that that money supports some sort of course, right? Like I got a scholarship to go to school or take a course or sometimes like that. There are a few out there, but try both search terms as you're looking for opportunities. Another place I like to look is connected to professional associations who often provide grants and opportunities in this space. And so I'm a big sports fan. I'm doing a lot of fantasy football right now. One of my leagues is doing well, one not so much. But if I could go back in undergrad and take on like an internship in the sports world, one of the places that I would probably look is the Association for Women in Sports, right? And so one of the cool things that they do is they offer an internship that goes along with that, and they do a profile and they talk about where they kind of set those folks up. And so think about what your industry interests are. Think about your intersection of identities, and identify professional associations. You'll sometimes find both internship postings, which can kind of be a cool thing to apply to, but also financial support that connects to what your interests actually are. And that could be in anything from science to PR to sports, right? And so that's another good place to look. So the Association for Publishing. Publishing is another one where it's sometimes harder to find paid opportunities in that space. So that's another good nugget to just think about. Google is your friend in this case. If there was a database, a really good one of professional associations, I would just give you the link. I haven't really found one yet. And so this is a case where we will use Google to kind of identify interests. Or again, stop by the Career Center. We can help you identify some things in that area as well. For my political science crew, one of the other things that I wanted to share here is, hold on. There it is. Awesome. External resources. Okay. The Rudolph Foundation. Let me make sure. And then I got Public Service Scholarship. They're one of the folks that support that. They are called Scholarship. I realized I just told you the grant tip, but they're one of the folks. And so if you're interested in public service, that's me, covers that think tank policy space. They have some opportunities specifically for women that support that. And so just keep an eye out for them and check out that external tab in that second page for kind of more industry specific info. But I wanted to highlight that knowing we've got some future policy folks in the room. I think another place to take a look for paid opportunities is actually through us. Outside of searching yourself, under our industry resources page, I'm going to use the marketing and creative fields. Again, that entertainment space tends to be just tough to find opportunities that are paid. And so my colleague Jackie has just done an awesome job of pulling out, like in the arts, a few spotlight paid opportunities for each industry. And so if you're thinking more about performing arts, like at Wolf Trap or down at Arena Stage, and that's something you're interested in, they offer paid stipends and fellowships. And so just know that those types of things are out there. Same thing for journalism, same thing for publishing through like Penguin Group and whatnot. So this is a space where we can be helpful as well. And again, knowing that each of you has your own goals connected to this, we want to find the right match in terms of paid versus unpaid, grant money, housing, what's going to be most helpful for you. And geographically, where do those things overlap, excuse me. So those are a few, I think, important nuggets. Let me see. I think those are some of my at least go-to starting points with professional associations. I know those are a few examples. One of the other pieces, it is absolutely appropriate to negotiate even if it's listed as unpaid. And so what do I mean by that? They might say to you, I'm unable to give a stipend. Like that's just not something my organization can do. But for DC purposes or metropolitan area purposes, ask them about supporting transportation, right? Is that something they're open to, like supporting MetroCard or something like that? Every bit that helps you is what's on the table. And so that can be something that you ask for. You can ask for a list of past interns. Like I was wondering if you could get me in touch with some past interns. Housing is a real concern for me, particularly in this insert X urban area here. Would love to talk to people about some affordable housing options that they found. I figure talking to past interns could be a great way to do that. And the employers themselves might have some thoughts on where to get started. Most universities, kind of like Georgetown, offer summer housing. It's usually expensive. And so that's I think the trade-off in other cities. At Georgetown, I know kind of the jobs and things that support that, but it can be a starting point in terms of finding good housing, and at least for me, safe housing, given that frankly, your safety matters more than anything else. So that's why we want to take this time to kind of talk through that as well. Let's see. I'm trying to think in terms of the paid and unpaid pieces. Yeah, those are kind of at least my favorites to start, but want to make sure we kind of connect with the people who are sitting here. Walk me through what types of questions or things that I haven't gotten to yet that you were hoping to learn a little bit more about. And it doesn't have to be about paid or unpaid. If you're thinking about just the internship process in general, I'm happy to answer those questions too. Yes, ma'am.
With the things you mentioned about like summer housing applications that have to happen before maybe you're even applying for your internship. So once, say you get that position for the summer housing, is that binding? You have to go with it? Because what if you don't end up getting the internship itself?
And so most jobs on campus, if you give appropriate notice, they will have an alternate list.
Okay.
And so what I don't want to encourage is, 48 hours before you're supposed to start your position, you reach out and say, sorry, can't do it. And that would be true whether it's an on-campus job or off-campus internship opportunity. But if you were to say accept a summer housing role in January or February, have a change of plans or realize you want to take an opportunity outside of the DC area, you would just formally resign with that department. And sometimes I even say, if there are ways I can help with recruitment or things, let me know. And things not to defer bridges, but frankly, you need to also be able to prioritize your own needs and take care of yourselves. So yeah, professionalism, aka not 48 hours before you're supposed to get back to campus, but absolutely appropriate to resign with enough notice. What else do you guys want to know? Yeah.
What are some of the good tips and tricks of negotiating when they say it's unpaid, but you really need them to go for housing or transportation or whatever?
Yeah, and so one of the things that I'll say is, I understand this is an unpaid opportunity. Is there any flexibility in terms of either a small stipend or salary? And if they say there's really not, I would encourage you to say, this is actually my first choice. If this is something you're really excited about, this opportunity is my first choice. You've already done your homework, so you're able to say what you need, right? If I'm able to get X from either an internal or external source, if you have any recommendations, employer A, that would be really helpful to me because this opportunity really is a priority. I've had students who've done that and just received really positive feedback either from the employer, and they will sometimes approve and sometimes they can't. And if that's the case, then we go to some of these external steps, grants, scholarships, to try to fund that opportunity. But the worst thing someone can say is no, and people are very rarely offended when that's done professionally, first and foremost, and you're saying, I really like you, right? Like I'm really excited to work for you is not something that's usually received in a negative way, right? So I think it's perfectly appropriate to kind of just if that's true for you, right, just being very upfront about what you need. Yes, ma'am?
So if we have like a personal situation where, we have an offer or whatever, just like a personal situation, how can we come to the Career Center?
Yeah.
And who should we get in touch with if we want advice? Because I have come here just come for a general visit and brought this kind of stuff up, and it's just there are resources, but what if we want someone to respond really? Yeah. Who's the right person here?
Part of my answer might vary depending on industry. Absolutely. And so if you knew it's in this specific field, I might refer to that person. I know for me and the folks on my team, I would say we all have a starting point, but sometimes what I'll say to a student is I'll take as much information as I can from them and be like, I need to do some homework too, to try to find opportunities that are right fit for you. So oftentimes I sometimes just don't have and therefore X, but I think just like you said, advocate for yourself. I really need help in this specific area. Is it this industry or this person? I met with this Allison person, went to this workshop. Also happy to, if you want to hang out after, even just schedule some time to talk more, because I know it's important. What else are you guys wondering about?
Oh,
No? I took the big inhale, yeah.
You touched on most of the things I was wanting to know, but is there anything entrepreneurial?
Ooh, yeah. So, startups. And so, I would say in the DC area in particular, startups themselves can be an interesting place to explore. I think if you're able to show your value and articulate a need, that's helpful. Another place to take a look is something like, say, 1776. Are you familiar with them?
I worked there over the summer.
You did?
Yeah, for out of there.
But I would say similar to even using startup Hoyas and some of their paid and unpaid internships. I feel like I'm telling you things you already know. depending on the size of the startup you want to connect with, I think that also makes a difference. Are we working with someone in the incubator phase coming straight out of finding some funding? Or are we working with someone who already has established and done their venture capital stuff, if that's where the direction they're headed, which isn't always the case. Yeah, don't even, I almost want to be like, come talk to me more, because I want to know, I think that there are some places that we could look for things.
Thank you.
Yeah. You doing okay? Awesome. Well, if you have any other questions, this is a starting point. The way I view this workshop is not necessarily be like, but at least want to give you some places to look and start and let us know how we can be helpful as we move forward. Sound good? Awesome. Stay warm out there.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yay.
Do you have a net ID?
I do.
Because I would love to like